All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Mariame Kaba. Mariame is a Chicago-based organizer, educator, and writer. She is the founder and director of Project NIA, a group working to end youth incarceration, and the writer of the blog Prison Culture, which you can find at usprisonculture.com. You can also follow her on Twitter at Prison Culture. Mariame, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thank you so much for having me, Matthew.
All right, so Mariame, this last Saturday in Ferguson, Missouri, an unarmed 18-year-old child, Michael Brown, was shot at least 10 times and killed by Missouri police. I guess let's start out. What exactly do we know? What do we know so far about what happened when he was killed?
Yeah, I think it's pretty murky. What initially had been in the news was that the young man had stolen or shoplifted something from a gas station convenience area, and that he basically, the police ended up shooting him after that shoplifting incident. It's now come out over time that there's a question about whether or not he actually ever shoplifted anything at all. And there's also some now even more questions about how exactly he was shot by the police. Initially, eyewitnesses said that he had his hands up and that he was shot by the police twice. He fell, and then that they continued to shoot him. And now the police yesterday on Sunday basically came to a new explanation of what happened and said that he actually was, walking on the sidewalk after the shoplifting incident, and the police told him to get in the car. They were trying to get him in the car. He resisted. When they got into the car, there were 2 shots, or now maybe 1 shot fired, and then he fled, and as he was fleeing, the police emptied all those shots into his body. This contradicts what people who were there and eyewitnesses said actually happened. The long story short is that a young man who's 18 years old, who apparently was set to start college today, had graduated from high school earlier this spring, is dead. And the police shot him, and they did it 10 times. So, right now, those are the 3 facts that are actually not seemingly in dispute, but everything else is.
Yeah, I mean, any way you look at it, in my opinion, it doesn't, one, if he shoplifted, he didn't deserve to die.
That's
2, if he resisted, he didn't deserve to die. None of these instances along the way can you look at and go, you know what? He deserved to die. He deserved to be shot 10 times and murdered. None of even if you even bring into account what the police say happened, which again we have many reasons to not believe what the police are saying here. Even if that is the case, there is no decent human reason that this young man should be dead today.
There is absolutely no reason, and let's also add the fact that he was shot 10 times. You know, what exactly is that about? Why are we hearing that? Why would 10 shots be necessary to incapacitate somebody? Surely the officer or the officers in particular question have training around, how to incapacitate people rather than killing them. So in all ways, basically, this is, there's no justification for his death.
Yeah. And also, since his murder, we can call the murder of this young man, we've seen all types of protests happening in Missouri, which has been met with more police violence. Surprise, surprise. Talk a little bit about what's happened in Ferguson since this young man was killed.
Sure. So apparently, again, I think like everybody else, I've been following this through social media because, the traditional media hasn't actually been on the ground besides a couple of local reporters to cover this story. quite a bit on social media to be able to get our news. In particular, I've been relying on the ground people who are there in Ferguson through Twitter. And what I have understood was that for the last couple of days, the community has been peacefully trying to get answers from the Ferguson Police Department as to what happened. It really, if you, I think, check and see, you'll see an incredibly iconic, in my opinion, photograph of Michael Brown's father standing with a cardboard with Ferguson police just executed my unarmed son open on it, and a photo of that, being shown to the world, and kind of like a declaration of affirmation and humanity, I wrote. And I think that's right, and also of love. And, that's, I guess, one of the ways to broadcast to the world what actually was happening in this particular, town, which apparently is a suburb of, it's the St. Louis area, but a suburb that actually is Sarah Kenzior wrote on Twitter that it's a suburb where a lot of the people who had been pushed out of the city, basically poor people, working class people, have moved to reconstitute another poor and working class suburb area. And here we are, where the community had been sitting down, literally doing marches, holding vigils, putting their hands up. There's these amazing, video and still images of people putting their hands up saying, "Don't shoot to the police." All sorts of kind of ways that people had been waiting for some news. And finally, when it took hours for the police to come out the next day to come up with this incredible story, basically, that they came up with as to what happened and how this young man ended up dead. People then waited all day for more information, and they were sitting, basically doing a sit-in in front of the police station trying to get more information. They ended up going back to the site where the young man was killed, and basically they sent out the entire police force of the area, including 15 other jurisdictions, to stand in front of community members wearing riot gear and holding, military-style weapons, as though people were automatically going to be violent. And I tweeted, and I think it's right, that we should understand that, why are people not questioning incitement by this way that these officers show up in people's community, as though they are already expecting that their community is going to fight back. There'd been talk all throughout that young people in the community were getting increasingly frustrated and angry at the lack of response and the lack of respect basically being afforded to them to provide them with a story that actually even made halfway any sense whatsoever. And a few people, not even the majority of the people, but a few people then decided they were going to take matters into their own hands and break, property and break police cars and break various kinds of businesses in the area. It's been funny to me, not funny in an actual ha-ha way, but funny in a gross way, how people have now all of a sudden, who were silent throughout this process on social media, have now been tweeting, quote-unquote, looting pictures and, tying that the people on the ground, like, what is wrong with these people? Why are they, quote, destroying community, property in their own communities? Oh, we would have been with you had you actually grieved and, responded in the proper way. This, to me, is what happens all the time to people who are so far removed from the daily experiences of people who are consistently marginalized by the police, who never step in before the boiling point, or silent throughout consistent, experiences of injustice that these mostly young people, mostly young Black people, are experiencing on a regular, daily, hourly, minute-by-minute basis. And this is not just happening, obviously, in Ferguson. This is happening in cities and in suburbs across the entire country. Somebody leaked the racial profiling data, basically the arrest data of Ferguson, and you see this disproportionality in the targeting of young Black people, and particularly young Black men in the community. So young Black women also find themselves maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. Young and old Black women find themselves at the mercy of the cops also on a regular basis. So I think when you think about the response of the people in that community, everybody will rush to tell you how they don't, quote unquote, condone rioting. The next thing they're going to then say is not, I don't condone that, quote unquote, I don't condone uprisings, whatever language they choose to use. They don't follow that up with, but I not only understand how it is that people can get to this point, but I'm also committed to addressing the conditions that actually lay the groundwork for this kind of response, that for many people is their only access to, to being able to be seen and heard. And I've seen people consistently take a little piece of, MLK, who seems to pop up, particularly I find for white people when issues happen, and they pick one sentence from a larger 10 million paragraph speech as though that's how they're going to prove to you that, somehow, that's the most quotable Black person on the planet, and that then should shut down any other conversation we ever have about anything. How could you do that? MLK would be rolling in their graves, in his grave, and that's what I got yesterday. You should not. MLK would be so sad. Oh, really? MLK would be so sad. Please have all the seats that you can possibly find. So, so we're really, we're in that moment now of the story, even as the situation on the ground in Ferguson has yet to be actually resolved by anyone. Now everybody has something to say, and everybody's, looking at these young people and imposing respectability politics on them. It's something. It's something.